So I want to actually, I want Josh to be up here when I say this. I'm going to thank all of you in a minute, but look, this is one special guy. And you know that, and I know that. And I wanted to be here today. I'm doing like a 24-hour because tomorrow, I can't believe I'm about to say this, is my first year wedding anniversary.
Yay.
So I am going to be home so I can have a second wedding anniversary. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say, and I wanted Josh to be here as I said it, is that this is, can I still use Yiddish here?
Absolutely.
This is a true mensch. This is a true, compassionate, amazing human being who also happens to bleed union and bleed teaching and learning. That is who Josh Pechtold is. And you know that, and I know that, and on top of that, we have all been inspired by his courage, not just his conviction. And if you look at where, and I'm glad to see a bunch of leaders who've been leaders in the CFT for years, and I saw some of our leaders that are going to be here tonight, and I'm not going to do a compare and contrast, but look at what has happened in California. And I just will never forget that as we were, or Jerry Brown was thinking about how, and you know Jerry Brown would do a lot of thinking, about how we needed to have more resources for schools, and he had his own version of Prop 30, right?
Right.
Josh was the brawn, not the brain. Josh was the brawn that created the Jerry Brown conversion to a more progressive Prop 30. And for those of you who don't know the story, maybe he will tell you, but it involved a lot of dining room tables in his house, as well as secret meetings in hotel rooms. He'll tell you the story. But
Please.
At the end of the day, or maybe he won't tell you the story. But at the end of the day, that was the turning point. That was the way of saying, no, this state, and I know there's a lot left to do in this state, I'll talk about that more in a minute, but this state is not going to be caged by austerity. And it's not going to just do the simple things of doing a sales tax or that which is regressive. And it was this guy, him sometimes really alone, I remember those stories, who kept saying, no, our union is about being progressive and being proactive, and that is who Josh Pechtold is.
Thank you. Thank you. I should just say that these people would have had my head if I had wavered on that. So it was all of you also, but thank you very much.
Well, that's because we have an amazing union, and you just took my next line, where everybody has each other's back. And that is what the California Federation of Teachers has always been, and everybody knew that you knew, Josh, that everybody was going to be there in terms of making that fight. So really, thank you very much, and I also want to thank all of you very much, not only for that, but look, and there's been feted a lot today, I'm sure, LA, Oakland. These are some of the amazing stories of what has happened in our labor movement in the last, I guess, few months. But nothing happens, and I'm sure Alex has said this, and the UTLA folks have said this, nothing just happens magically. It doesn't just all of a sudden, oh, we're going to have a strike today. Are you guys laughing? It's It happens with work. It happens with foundation. It happens with a lot of seeding the ground. And that is what the California Federation of Teachers have done, and frankly, what all of you have done. It is the fight for social justice. It is the fight for education justice. It is the fight for the vulnerable. It's the fight to create free college at the City College of San Francisco. That is who you have been, not just in the year of the teacher or the teacher strikes. There is a tipping point that happens, but that is who you all have been, and I want to say thank you very much to each and every one of you in this room and everyone that we represent in California. Thank you very, very much. Oh my God, you can actually applaud yourselves more than that. I'm going to say it again. Thank you very much. Better. So I want to just take a few minutes to talk about where we've been and where we're going. And frankly, as I said to a couple of people as I walked in, we are in very Dickinsonian times. And look, just look. LA, it's not just the strike, but how it created a paradigm shift. And kids and parents, and when you have Eric Garcetti who's walking the line with you, you know that there is a paradigm shift in, not that Eric's a bad guy, he's a good guy, but a mayor walking the line. Every single presidential candidate who was then a presidential candidate at that moment, I'm sure there's 100 since, but every single one of them tweeting support for the LA teachers. You know that's a paradigm shift, but that's the best. Then I woke up, I did not put this on the screen. I do not want all of you to have the same heart attack as I had. On March 21st, Thursday, political article, how Trump is on track for a 2020 landslide. I did not make this up. Politico, how Trump is on track for a 2020 landslide. Look, the stakes were high in 16, but I would argue that they are much higher today. And so I don't actually care if you listen to the rest of my speech. What I do care about is that you go, and I know there's Wi-Fi in this room. This is what happens when you get older. You just take yourself less seriously. But AFTvotes.org. We are trying to do and to get the most, biggest, greatest, most engagement of our members this year in the presidential process. So, as I said, I don't mind if you multitask. I don't mind if you even ignore me. Get engaged and involved in the 2020 presidential process and start by going onto the website. No, let's put the website back on. Start by going onto the website, which is aftvotes.org, and fill out the survey and put your name down. And we have a 4-step process that is clear there, but it's about engagement. It's about getting the candidates to be involved with us, but for us first to be engaged and talk about our own aspirations. The 3rd step is that there are many candidates. Bernie is right down the street. Kamala just did an amazing policy proposal about increasing teacher pay. Elizabeth did an amazing proposal about childcare. What we're saying to everybody is get involved, get engaged, get involved with different candidates. Let's slate a lot of people at the convention. And then when it's time to come back together, we all come back together as a union and as a family, because the number one thing we must do is get somebody in the White House that reflects our values, and that means defeating Donald Trump. So, this room, it's a different process. Get involved, please. This room knows that elections matter. You saw it. We saw it with Trump. You saw it with Gavin Newsom. We saw it with Tony Thurmond. And if we do our work, we will see it with Jackie Goldberg. And I don't have to tell this room what Trump's election unleashed. Frankly, he's a symptom. The bigotry's always been there. Japanese internment, slavery, Jim Crow. And it's not just then. Take the current day hostilities towards immigrants, particularly Muslim immigrants. And then there's the economic and the education issues, like a tax break for the wealthy that will hurt every single state that has significant state and local taxes for services. So as we're going to try to get more progressive taxes, what Trump did was actually require double taxation for every state that actually provides this. And who gets hurt? 11 million people. And in what states? Oh, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California. Anything in common with these states? And I'll get back to economics in a second. There are two sites I want to give you. But you know the consequences quite well of this administration when it came to education and labor. Betsy DeVos. I know I'm not singing I Will Survive, but I think we can do better than that. Betsy DeVos. So Betsy has tried to bring her failed Michigan anti-public education agenda to West Virginia. You heard we needed 2 strikes to try to defeat that. She's not the only one who's brought it to LA or to California. There's been a whole bunch of other fat cats. But look at what's happening now in Florida. She will try everything to actually stop public education and call it choices. But look at what else she's done just in the last few weeks. Once again, cut every summer school program, cut every after-school program, cut the only real student debt forgiveness program, public service loan forgiveness, hurt or diminish protections for sexual assault survivors. Need I go on and on? And then, and people have said it already, but you know what happened in terms of Janus. A week after Justice Gorsuch was confirmed, a week, the right wing used Mark Janus as the vehicle to do, by their own admission, defund and defang public sector unions. But there is a saying, and you know what it is, which is that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And frankly, I think we are stronger. I think we are much stronger today than we were last year. And that's because we fought, we care, we showed up, and in so doing, we have transformed our union and with it, our relationship with broader communities. And Josh talked a little bit about our whole work in terms of community engagement, but let me give you a different angle on this, which is this. Think back, because New York and California are pretty much the 2 states that still have huge labor density. But think back to a time, the 60s, the 70s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, when 1 out of every 3 working people were in a union. When that happened, we were community. We had the built-in power of the people. Not everyone, but we could win elections reliably because we were community. Now, when we are less than 10%, 7% particularly, we have to intentionally think about community as our new density. And if you think about it, think about not just what LA did, not just what San Francisco did with Prop G, not just what Oakland did, but if you think about it in terms of this lens, listen to what ABC just talked about the teacher leaders and how they could connect the dots in that way when they went up and lobbied. It's building community within the union, the value of belonging, not just talking about the bad guys, reconnecting again, talking to each other. But it's also the work we do within the broader community. and it reflects the way people are embracing our issues. You could not walk a block in LA without someone who is not a teacher, not just beeping at you, not just saying, go, go, but understanding that that strike was about getting guidance counselors for kids, or nurses for kids, or lowering class size for the existing schools so that kids in neighborhoods would have a chance. That's not just bargaining for the common good, that is being community. And that is what we are doing within the union and with our broader community. And so what you're seeing is that the union, our union, is a vehicle to bring people together. Because when people work together, when people strike together, when people break bread together, when people have fun together, because remember, joy is an act of resistance. When people are together, what happens is we accomplish what is impossible to do alone. And that is what the last 2 years, from the moment that 5 million people called the Senate switchboard to say hell no to Betsy DeVos, that's what the last 2 years has taught, at least it's taught me. And just a little factoid, our own union. The day of the Janus decision, we moved off our books 84,000 agency fee payers. We just said, okay, goodbye. Moved them off, been very careful legally. Today, we have added 100,000 members, wiping out all of the loss of Janus. We are close to being at 1.7 again, but this is no longer 1.7 of those we represent. This is 1.7 million members. That's who we are. Did I lose the mic? No. But look, what do we need to do? We avoided the funeral. We're singing I Will Survive. We're feting tonight because joy is an act of resistance. But what do we have to do other than just get back to work? Trump's approval ratings are as high as they've ever been. I'm serious. And Fox and the Russians and the oligarchs are not going to give up what they have without a fight. And Trump is a perfect vehicle for them. Think about this fact. All these economists are saying, oh, the economy is doing just great. Low unemployment, stock market going up. But who is the economy doing well for? We've seen, yes, but even worse. We've seen school budgets slashed. We've seen public services slashed. We've seen tax breaks to billionaires and to corporations. We're in a new Gilded Age, the same one we were in 100 years ago, if not worse, than when CFT was born. After the Great Depression, the gap between rich and poor narrowed. But after the Great Recession, it's increased. Depression, sorry, I gotta always be a social studies teacher, 39 to 45, and the war, all of a sudden, the start of the middle class. Now, after 2008, it's widened. You know these stats. 25 states spend less on public education than they did before 2008, and 41 spend less on higher education. But just think about how the Trump tax cut has supercharged this. 2 statistics. The 400 richest Americans, that's not the top 1%, it's not the top 0.5%, it's not the top 0.25%, it is, for the math teachers, the top 0.00025. Those 400 had tripled their share of the nation's wealth since the early 1980s. And they own more wealth than the bottom 150 million adults. And speaking of 400, today, 40% of adults in America say they wouldn't be able to pay an unexpected expense of $400 without borrowing money. And 25% don't have a pension. Now, Lordstown, Ohio. We've tried to keep the GM plant open, working with the UAW. Today, we're in Hamtramck trying to keep that plant open too. The plant closure will devastate that northeastern Ohio community, probably to the tune of about $3 billion of economic input or impact. Why am I giving you these numbers? Because to retrofit the plant so that they could make SUVs, it would cost about $100 million. But GM made $8 billion this year. So it cost 100, they made $8 billion. So why are they not doing it? Because in the last 4 years, they have given to 5 to 10 shareholders $25 billion of stock buybacks. So I tell you all these things because you know I don't have to tell you the stuff about charters and vouchers and what's happening. You live that. But think about what this means around the country and how Donald Trump has been able to say he's a fighter for the little guy when what he has done is made it much, much, much worse for the little guy. That is why our work is cut out for us all across this country. And it's not just that, and it's not just education. Think about what bigotry and intolerance is doing. Think about what's still happening on the southern border. Think about what's happening in terms of deportation. That stewardess, that flight attendant yesterday who was a dreamer, who was in jail for 6 weeks for being a dreamer, and now she's out because of the work that our unions have done to try to get her out. But this is my point. When we do things together, we can beat this because we are the carrier pigeons for a better life. We together as a labor movement, we together as CFT, what we do is we fight for a better life for all. We fight for a voice at work. We fight for a voice in our democracy. That is what you did in LA. That is what we've done in West Virginia. That is what we're doing in the last 2 years. That is why we won the Congress by more than 9 million votes, and we need to do more of it in the next 2 years. So, what are we doing? As a union, we are actually saying, how do we do more of this? How do we fight for a better life? How do we fight for a better future? How do we fight for a voice at work? How do we fight for a stronger democracy? How do we keep building community inside and outside the union, reconnecting, creating alliances, and doing campaigns? And so the 4 campaigns that we as a national union are spearheading are these. You know one of them, Fund Our Future, the national coordinated strategy on investment to ensure that schools, pre-K through college, and other public services have the resources they need. And ultimately, we think that this notion of funding our future will actually help make sure that the presidential candidates are talking about education, like Kamala Harris just did in Houston when she said there needs to be a federal contribution to raise teacher pay. But it's not just that. It's IDEA, it's Title I, it's school infrastructure, it's colleges. So that is what we are trying to do in terms of For Our Future. More at another time. Number 2, fighting for an environment in all our workplaces that are safe, healthy, and welcoming. you can see what is happening in terms of these horrible gun violence tragedies and what we need to do. We could take a page out of the book of New Zealand, but we haven't. And instead, we have hardened schools to the point that you saw what happened in Indiana this week. How the hell do you do that to teachers? This is a human rights violation, what happened there. To have active drill training where you're actually shooting pellet bullets at people? What has our country come to? And that is the kind of outrage we need to have to stop it. Number 3. And this is kind of my pet project here, professionalism. How many times are we told, particularly the pre-K through 12 teachers here, just do what you're told? How many times have you closed the door and hoped nobody would show up? What happens? Why not take this activism? Why not take the new ESSA law? Why not take what you have in Linda Darling-Hammond and Tony Thurmond? Why don't we have the latitude we need in classrooms so we can meet children's needs where they are, not just testing or pacing guidelines? That is part of union work. And last, there's $1.5 trillion of student debt. How do we stop it to make sure students don't have a death sentence? That is our work, and that will involve and mean and impact virtually everyone in this country. Now, we're still doing all the other stuff in terms of Black Lives Matter and Dreamers and things like that. But if we take these 4 issues on, which are our issues, which will affect communities all across the country, then all of a sudden, we are strengthening our public schools, and we are making them places where parents want to send their kids, and teachers want to be, and kids want to be. That is our work, and that is about what we're trying to do. And you, in terms of the investment fight, the School and Community First ballot initiative, you are doing the Fund Our Future campaign, and you know what it's about. I don't need to tell you what it's about, but let me just tell you this. The AFT will be with you step by step, shoulder to shoulder, to make sure that referendum gets passed, particularly in this day and age. These, my friends, are about choices. DeVos uses this word all the time, but 91% of kids go to public schools, and our job is to strengthen them and make them safe and welcoming places where you have a real voice. That's our job. But we also have another choice, which is this. Will we let the other side define us? I'm just taking a breath. Will we let them divide us? No. Will we let them define us? No. Or will we unify for our values and fight for our future and the future of our communities? Yes. So, this is my dream. On January 20th, 2021, I want someone, remember, I am not for anybody right now, to step into the White House that prioritizes the needs of our students and our communities and demands that those in power all throughout the country invest in our public schools, colleges, and universities. I want someone who realizes that going to college shouldn't be a death sentence. I want someone who understands and will work to make sure that no American is an illness away from bankruptcy. I want someone who understands and knows that people get up every day and go to work every day, and that is what makes this country great, and they should have a living wage, and they should not fear for their lives or fear bigotry and hate. I want someone who knows that the Statue of Liberty is our symbol, not a wall on the southern boundary. Now, all of you have dreams, but we all know, as Frederick Douglass said, and yes, he is not alive anymore, Mr. Trump, power power does not concede without a demand. We have a demand in the LA strike. We have a demand in the Oakland strike. We have a demand right now in America, which is we need a future. And that means we all have to be all in, be engaged, fight for it, talk to people, engage with people, broaden our alliances, be a community within our union and outside our union. And if we do that, and you saw that today with Alex talking and with Fred talking, if we can align West Virginia and LA, then we can align this whole country and make it better again for all of us. Thank you very much.